This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about karma for colonizers, fun with rubber cement, and acid rain nightmares. All that and more as we watch Season 5, Episode 3 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. Joining me is my sister, Sophia. What's up, Sophia?
Hi, Imran. I'm doing very well. And guess what? This month, we had the 29th anniversary of the final episode of Perfect Strangers, which happened in 1993.
Wow. 29 years ago, and we're not quite there yet. We're getting there. But the people still love this show.
Yes.
As is evidenced by the fact, also, the same time, the mid-August, Bronson Pinchot, Mark Lynn Baker, made an appearance at Steel City Comic-Con in Pennsylvania, Monroeville, Pennsylvania.
That's right. It's been all over the Perfect Strangers fan groups, and people got to meet them and take pictures with them.
If we weren't in Chicago, that would have been fun to go to, I guess. Maybe
we'll make it to one of these appearances.
They can come by closer to Chicago. But look, 29 years the show finished airing, and
August 6th, 1993.
And now people are still coming out to see them at conventions. They're wonderful. They're still wonderful.
And hopefully more people will learn about how wonderful they were through our show.
We're trying to spread the gospel of Balky and Larry as we are on season 5, episode 3,
entitled The Newsletter.
Oh, a newsletter, is it?
It is. And if you would have opened the TV guide, you would have read this description. As editor of the Chronicles newsletter, Balky gets some practical advice from Larry on digging deeper into the who, what, where, when, and why of office gossip.
What?
So, two thoughts here. Newspaper has a newsletter.
Listen, you got to update your employees with the goings on of if you got a lot of employees internally somehow,
Yes.
Sure, why not? They're printing things anyways. They can mimeograph a little newsletter for the employees.
That's right. And secondly, I thought that Balky took a whole college class on journalism taught by Cousin Larry.
You saw him show up to one.
Yeah, that's true.
One class.
And he was pretty mad at Cousin Larry the whole time. Maybe he just disregarded everything. Anyway, so we get a second chance to learn these things in this episode. We have our standard cast of Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker as Balky and Larry. We also have some Chronicle favorites. Belita Marino as Lydia Markham and Sam Anderson as Mr. Gorpley. We also have F.J. O'Neill as Mr. Wainwright and one brief guest appearance from another actor who we'll talk about when we get there. And this episode aired on October 6th, 1989.
The fall of 89. Of course, all of Perfect Strangers available to stream for free on Amazon Freevee. You can binge it over and over and over again, and the tape won't wear out.
No.
Like those old VHS tapes back in the day.
Remember when they would show tapes getting ruined and all the tape gets pulled up and scrambled up and spits out of the VCR?
That still gives me stress just thinking about that. Also, you don't have to adjust the tracking on Amazon Freevee. That was always a problem. Fix the tracking.
I don't think people even know what that means.
No,
anymore.
that's those little white snow pieces, which are never mind. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. All right. Act 1 of the newsletter. We are in the basement of the Chronicle, and Larry's at his desk, and he's looking very stressed. He's a stressed Larry, and he's like working, and there's all this stuff. He's typing, and he's also on the phone. And we hear him talking to Mr. Walpole, also known as
Pole Vault,
and Maytag. Mr. Walpole, Marshall and Walpole, and he's saying, "Okay, yes, sir." We hear him say, "I'll get it to you as soon as I get a chance." And then he pauses, and he's like, yes, sir, I do enjoy working here. I'll get it to you right now. Goodbye, sir. So they are riding Larry. They're treating him sort of like not fair with all this work. He hangs up the phone and in a frantic frenzy, he yells, copy. And he tries to pull this like story out of, fully typed up story out of his typewriter, but he rips it in half. And then he's like, never mind.
First of all, that old typewriter is amazing.
Yeah.
And second of all, he's going to have to retype all of that.
Yeah.
How stressful is this? So you had one copy of this thing you just typed.
He could have taped it together.
He's going to have to tape it. Now you got to type it back. Lydia was in the beginning. She's walked up to his desk and she's just watching all of this. And she's like, boy, they got you going, don't they? And Larry says he has to interview an alderman and research a 6-part series on money laundering. And he says he hopes no one dies because he's way behind updating the obituaries. Oh, boy.
And then Lydia says, well, that's why she likes writing an advice column. And she says, when the pressure starts building, I do what I'm doing this weekend. Go to the Bahamas, print a bunch of my old columns, and call it The Best of Lydia.
Oh, smart move.
Good tactic. And then Larry's like, well, I don't think they're going to run a best of the obituaries.
He's behind
There's
the obituaries.
our opening joke.
Yes. So we've established they are riding Larry, and he's super, super busy, and they're making him do 100 different things, and he can't turn anything down. He's got to do it. Do them all.
And Lydia's a little bit critical of him. She's like, thinks that he's just like a yes man and letting people walk all over him. He says, face it, Larry, when they say jump, you ask how high.
Yeah.
And then Larry is like, all right, but the next person who asks me for anything, I'm just going to go off on them. And then Mr. Wainwright enters from the back.
Appleton.
Yeah. And then he realizes who it is and changes his mind. He says, yes, sir, Mr. Wainwright. He runs over to him and stands right in front of him, sort of like at attention. And turns out that Wainwright needs a 1,000-word background story on a murder trial.
Oh, boy.
And again, Larry's like, yes, sir, I'm your man, Mr. Wainwright. But he does try to get himself some time. He says, it might take me a little while because I'm already doing this, and this, and this. And Wainwright says, Appleton, if you'd learn to budget your time, you'd be able to get through this. Now get on it. Whoa, no sympathy, no empathy at all.
Wainwright don't care. He's like, get my story. And then Larry's like, thanks for the tip, sir.
And
he
like,
walks
yes,
off.
Sir. And Lydia gives him grief. She's like, guess you told him.
Yeah, what happened? I thought you were going to get an earful. What happened, Larry? And then suddenly Balky appears from the top staircase upstairs, very excited, and he runs in, as he always does.
Yelling and screaming.
Runs in with the plot of the episode, as he's done many times.
And he's yelling. He's excited. He's yelling, Cousin Larry, hold on to your hat because what I'm going to tell you is going to knock your socks off.
Clothing puns.
Why is he going to hold on to his hat if the socks are coming off?
A lot of clothing
He's mixing
jokes.
clothing puns, yes. We find out that Balky has been put in charge of the Chronicle newsletter.
Oh.
And he's so excited about it. Larry, however, barely hears him. He's like, that's nice. Lydia congratulates him, and Balky says, thank you. And Lydia says she loves reading the Chronicle chatter. It is so fascinating reading about people I see every day but would never socialize with.
It's a gossip rag, I guess, really. She just wants to know the gossip, but she would not dare talk to any of these people, Lydia.
And so she leaves, and Balky is still trying to get Larry to like hear his good news. And Larry is still kind of like buzzing about working. He's focused on his work, he's stressed, right?
Yeah.
And Balky's like, don't it make you just want to sing and shout and throw your body to the floor? Larry's like, uh-huh. And he's like, come on, cousin, celebrate. And then he starts doing a Balky dance and singing, dance to the music. Which it was a 1967 hit single by Sly and the Family Stone.
One of their great songs. It's a great song.
There's our musical reference. And Larry's still like not hearing any of this. And Larry's like, yeah, that's wonderful. And so then Balky finally grabs his face with both hands and like smushes his cheeks. Pulls him in. He says, cousin, I am very excited about this, and I would like you to share that excitement, and I would like that now. And then Larry, he's still with his face smushed in Balky's hands.
Oh, sorry, Balky. That's great news.
Yeah.
With his face smushed.
And he says, that's a great opportunity for you. If you do a good job, you could become a real reporter and get out of this basement.
And Balky goes, well, cousin, you're a real reporter and you're still in this basement.
Burn. Big audience laugh there.
Larry's like, I'm working hard to get out of it, of course. So then he goes, so unfortunately, the answer to your next question is no. And Balky pulls back and is shocked and we get a wow. He goes, Balky just looks at Larry and goes, I don't even know what my next question is going to be. And you already know the answer?
And he goes, do you have ESPN? He means to say ESP, extrasensory perception. And he said ESPN.
And Larry says no.
And then he goes, HBO.
Which is hilarious because now we're on TV networks. Larry says no.
PMS.
Oh, and then it just jumps to PMS, right? Larry says no. Didn't they make this ESPN joke before, like in the early season?
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like it's like I have ESPN. But I feel like they used that before.
Yeah.
But that's ESPN, HBO, and PMS.
And PMS.
It's really funny.
Yes. But Larry's like, no. And he's a little bit frustrated that Balky's taking up so much of his precious time when he has so much work to do. He says, the point I'm trying to make as quick as possible is that I know you would like the advice of someone who has had a lot of experience in journalism. Balky says, oh, cousin, I would. Could you introduce me to someone like that?
And Larry's like, no, me. I'm that someone who can help you. And Balky's like, thank you, cousin. And Larry goes, no, but I'm just too busy. And Balky goes, well, throw acid rain on my parade.
The expression is throw rain on my parade, which is already bad enough, but making it acid rain makes it
I
even
feel like
worse.
this was more another, like, you know how they mentioned the ozone layer in that other episode? Like, the environmental things
we used to talk a lot about acid rain
in the 80s, that, like, acid rain is destroying the environment, and we caused it. That's pretty funny.
Is acid rain still a thing that happens?
I don't think it's gotten better.
But here's the funny thing. The answer to Balky's next question did end up being no, because the question was, do you have ESPN? So Larry does have ESPN.
Also, a parade with acid rain is like a really horrifying image if you stop and think about it. That's just like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, we cut to the apartment. Some time has passed, possibly a couple of days, and you see Balky sitting at the kitchen table, feverishly working on the newsletter. And how is he working on this newsletter, sister? It's fascinating. I love this detail.
He is pasting copy, like little pieces of paper with paragraphs of copy text onto a larger piece of paper using rubber cement. Remember rubber cement?
I remember rubber cement. And this is how, even in when we both worked on the high school paper, this is how that's all those papers were put together. Literal typed out little squares, pasted on paper. Then they take a picture of that and reproduce it.
Before your page design software came out.
Before InDesign, before Quark Express.
Yeah, Quark.
Before
we used a lot of
these
Quark
things.
Express.
Before any desktop publishing on the computer. You had to
it on
glue
paper.
things up. It's wild. And I love rubber cement because it was fun peeling it off your fingers.
People still use rubber cement? Do kids still use? I mean, we use it a lot.
If they don't, they're missing out on one of the joys of being a child.
Rubber cement.
Can write your name on concrete and rubber cement and light it on fire. Like, it's the most fun thing ever.
Yeah.
And also, I have a weird obsession with adhesives. I just like adhesives. I like to know what things bind other things. I like to have them handy.
It's weird.
It's very strange, but it gets me excited. I'm like, oh, I can glue this together. I got the right stuff right here. Give me a second.
My favorite office supply was always the 3-hole punch for some reason.
The one long one?
Yeah.
Not the single hole puncher.
No, 3-hole punch.
Just because it was all lined up and you could fill your Trapper Keeper binder with papers.
Yeah.
No, I still got to think of it adhesives. I didn't eat the glue like some kids. I used the glue to make things.
The glue to stick things to other things.
Balky is sticking the newsletter together, and who is on the table next to him?
Dimitri.
Oh my God.
Get out of the city.
This is not just a Dimitri appearance. This is
Dimitri's
a Dimitri
in the
involved
episode.
in the story.
Yes.
How is Dimitri involved?
So Balky sticks a piece of copy on the paper, and he turns to Dimitri and he says, now, would you like to give it your stamp of approval? And he walks Dimitri across the table onto up till the paper. Then he turns him upside down, and then he starts smashing him onto the paper as if to like help press that little glued
like,
bit
"Oh, what are you
back
doing to
on. I
Dimitri?"
know. It was kind of violent.
It was very violent. Poor Dimitri.
And then he turns him back over. He looks at him in the face. He goes, "Take 5, babe."
Take
Puts
5,
him
babe.
on the kitchen counter.
No, I know. That was amazing.
Take 5, babe.
Dimitri helped with the newsletter.
Yes.
And then Larry runs in, and Belky is so excited. He goes over there, and I believe he picks him up and carries him over.
No, he just grabs his hand and
and,
runs him across
runs
the
him over.
room. And Larry's like, "How's it going?" And he's so excited. "It's going fantastic. I finished all my articles for the newsletter." And he pulls him across the apartment, like from the front door to the kitchen. And Larry's like, "That's terrific." And then Balky says, "Now we are so happy. We do the dance of joy." And they do the dance of joy. It's been a while since we've seen them do a dance of joy.
Sharp movements.
Yes.
Good patterns. And it ends, of course, with Larry in the arms of Balky as Balky's cradling him and holding him. And he walks over to the table.
Yeah, he carries
and
him
leads him over
to
to
the
look at the
table.
paper. It's so funny. But yes, a dance of joy like in the beginning, middle of the episode. It's crazy.
Yeah. So Larry is happy to look at what Balky's done. So he sits down and Balky says, "I think you're really going to like it. I feel I've developed my own unique style. Some may liken it to Hemingway while others cite Kafka, but you decide." Balky is taking this very seriously, right?
Those are some highfalutin writers too that he knows.
Yeah. So he gives Larry the mock-up that he was gluing things on, and Larry starts to read out loud some of these stories that Balky's written. One of them he reads is, "The Chronicle's favorite advice columnist Lydia Markham looks well rested after her vacation in the Bahamas." And then he's like, "That's it?" And Balky's like, "Pretty good, huh?" And then he reads another one. "Mr. Gorpley has been looking pretty snazzy all week, setting a good example for the rest of us." And Balky is so proud of himself. He says, "Oh, I editorialized a little toward the end of that one. I don't know. I thought it'd need a little color, a little something, a little snap." Larry, however, is not impressed, and he's about to let Balky know why. He says, "Balky, this is all fluff."
And Balky goes, "Oh, thank you, cousin." He throws his arms around him and gives
Fluff
him a
does
big hug.
sound like a compliment.
It does sound like something good. Oh, it's fluff. It's fluffy. Thank you.
He's like, "That was my goal, but you don't want to lose perspective on a project
You lose
like this."
perspective. What is this pertaining? And Larry goes, "No, where is the real story?" He's like, "Who cares if Lydia looks well rested or what Gorpley is wearing?" He goes, "Balky, I'm afraid this just isn't good enough." Oh.
Balky's like, "But this is what they told me to do. I did it just like they told me." And Larry says, "If they told you to jump, would you ask how high?"
Oh my God, he just throws the thing Lydia said at him earlier.
Yeah. And Balky says, "Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. I'd just jump as high as I possibly could and hope it was good enough."
Good answer.
And Larry is trying to push Balky to be better, whatever. He says, "Good enough doesn't sound like you." Balky's like, "Who does it sound like?" And Larry says, "The Balky I know wouldn't settle for good enough. The Balky I know would want to do his best. The Balky I know would want to make this the best newsletter in the history of newsletters." Balky says, "I want to be like the Balky you know."
But Larry's like, "You are the Balky I know." And he's like, "If you want to make this newsletter something worth reading, get to the story behind the story. You've got to dig deeper." He goes, "Telling your readers that Gorpley is well-dressed isn't enough. You got to tell them why he is suddenly so well-dressed."
And Balky says, "I want to do that."
Good, Larry says.
"How I do that?" And Larry says, "I'm going to tell you how to do that." And Balky says, I can't wait.
It's so
And
exciting.
now I think it's time for something we haven't done in a little while. I think we need a little act out of what comes
Perfect
next.
Strangers reenactment. This is a hilarious bit. Yes, let's
Would
do
you
it.
like to be Larry or Balky?
I'll be Balky this time.
Okay. So Larry says, "I'm going to tell you how to do that." And he says, "Okay. Now, to be a good reporter, you've got to know how to use who, what, when, where, and why. The 5 W's of journalism."
What?
That's one.
What's one?
Exactly.
Exactly what?
And who is another?
I don't know. Who is another?
Right. And don't forget where.
Where what?
That's 2.
What's 2?
No, what's 1? Who is another, and you know where.
I don't know where.
Sure you do. What's giving you trouble?
I don't know what's giving me trouble, but I know who is giving me trouble.
No, who you've got.
Who I've got.
And you know where.
Where?
Exactly.
Exactly what?
Perfect. Just a couple more and we'll be done soon.
When?
Hey, you're getting pretty good at this.
Wow.
No. Why?
I don't know why.
Well, you knew all the others.
When?
And where?
Where what?
And why?
I don't know why. All I know is I was sitting here gluing. You come in, we do the dance of joy. You make some false promise about another balcony, and now I'm totally confused and emotionally drained.
Okay, calm down. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right, let's start over again.
With what?
Yes.
Yes.
So this
that's so
obviously
funny.
was a lot of
That's so
fun
funny.
to do a reenactment. And if you've been around long enough, you'll recognize this whole gag as a spoof in the style of the classic Abbott and Costello routine, Who's On First.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of like the first like popular like sketch comedy things,
Yes.
right? To go around. Like I remember when I was a kid, you had to find this thing and play it, and it was just it works on for all ages.
We haven't seen it referenced in popular culture recently so much. So if you don't know about Who's On First, there was an American comedy duo, Abbott and Costello, a long time ago, perhaps one of the first sort of like buddy comedy situations. And they had this routine called Who's On First. And it was a sketch they did. They developed it through the 1930s and ended up copyrighting it in 1944.
That's so crazy. It's that old.
The premise is that Abbott is identifying the players on a baseball team for Costello, but the players' names are like who and what, etc.
The first baseman's name is who? So,
who is the first baseman? And the response is, yeah. And so similar to what we just did with Balky and Larry,
Where?
but theirs was the original. So
I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't, you should look it up. If you're younger and you never, it is
yes.
like, classic before the just OG sketch comedy, like the most shared thing.
And it became very, very famous.
Yeah.
And it was very smart and well done. Yes. Okay. So we had a fun little 5Ws
When?
bit. And then we cut to the next scene, which is even now another few days later, and we're at the Chronicle. And Balky is standing by the elevator. He's got a little notepad and a pencil. He's still working on these stories, these revisions of stories. And we hear Gorpley come out saying Bartokomous, and he's wearing a nice suit again.
Real nice suit, yeah.
And this is a funny Gorpley line. He's like, "It's almost noon. I'm going to lunch. I'll be back by 4."
Oh my God. The 80s.
He's
When you could
going
get
to
away
a
with that.
4-hour lunch.
4-hour lunch, maybe a little nap, a little liquid lunch.
And Balky asks him before he leaves, he's like, "Could you tell me why you're so dressed up this week?" And Gorpley says, "That's for me to know and you to find out." Balky says, "Oh, I love guessing games as much as the next guy, you big kidder." But he's working against a deadline. And Gorpley says, "And I'm working with an idiot," and walks away. So mean. And then Balky just like hears what he says, thinks about it, and he writes down in his notepad, "Mr. Gorpley hires new employee."
Check it out.
Check it out. He didn't realize who he was talking about.
And then,
working with
so Larry comes in and he asks Balky how it's going. And Balky has another funny line. He goes, "Cousin, I've got some leads, but every time I try to dig deeper, I wind up shoveling alone." Meaning, what does that mean? He's getting nowhere.
Yeah. And so Larry's like, explains that like journalism is hard. If it wasn't, everyone would be doing it. And he says, if you want to be a good reporter, you're going to have to change your tactics. And Balky says, "Well, I put on a clean pair this morning." Tactics.
I see my tactics.
And Larry keeps going. He's like, "No, you have to find all these different ways to get the information that you're looking for." And he says, "If someone won't talk to you, talk to their friends, talk to their wives, talk to their ex-wives." And Balky's like, "What if they're not married and they don't have any friends?" And Larry says, "Well, there's more other ways. You have to go to the places where you think you might find information. You like the water cooler, the lobby, the snack bar. Who knows?" He says, "Who knows? You might even have to go incognito." And Balky says, "Oh, I don't know. I don't care much for Mexican food. It always gives me Monty Hall's revenge."
Okay. There's a lot to unpack here. Incognito meaning like undercover,
Right?
But why does Balky think this is a Latin country? Or
no, I think he just thinks it sounds like a Mexican food dish. Incognito.
Might have to go, but why would he be talking about eating Mexican food? Or like he
sounds like a Mexican dish.
You might
like
have to
sofrito,
go
incognito.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he says, I don't care much for Mexican food. It always gives me Monty Hall's revenge.
What is
So Monty Hall, he meant Montezuma's revenge.
Right.
Monty Hall was a game show host who I believe hosted Let's Make a Deal for many, many years.
Right.
Now, what is the Montezuma's revenge? This is a phrase I thought it was even weird when I was younger. I've never heard anybody really use it.
Okay, so Montezuma was the last Aztec ruler before the Spanish conquered the Aztec Empire, right? So the Europeans came, and the same thing happened in Latin America that happened up north, is that they got all these diseases, or they either brought or they got,
from
or
the
like
Europeans.
Or the Europeans also
got
got diseases from local people and couldn't properly digest the food or whatever. So the phrase Montezuma's revenge is something that refers to the diarrhea that tourists get after drinking water or eating food.
Don't drink the tap water.
In Mexico as a result of like bacteria that natives are immune to, but foreigners are not. And it like in the framework of Montezuma, it was seen as like retribution for the Spanish slaughtering and enslaving the Aztec
That's what you
people.
get, colonizer.
Yeah.
And a phrase that's been around since the 60s, and I think largely, I'm surprised they even put it in here. I never hear
Montezuma's revenge, but he says Monty Hall's revenge.
Monty Hall's revenge, which is a game show host. So
I wonder what Monty Hall's revenge is.
Monty Hall has explosive diarrhea. That's what it is.
Okay. So they're talking about being incognito, and Larry says, no, I just mean that you might have to like put a costume on, wear a disguise, something like that. And Balky's like, that sounds like snooping. And Larry says, it's not snooping if you're writing it down.
Because
it's just journalism.
Is that true?
No.
Is that true? Is that good advice? It's not snooping if you're writing it down. That is journalism. It was hilarious line. I'm like, oh, bad Larry Appleton advice is going to come back to bite you. Which it will.
So then Larry says he has to go upstairs to like turn in some of these. He's still working on all these assignments. They go over to the elevator. He lets Balky push the button, and then he says, don't forget. He's like, don't forget. And he makes the air quotes with his fingers on both hands.
Well, you hold up your hands and you have
and
your
he does it twice.
Two bunny ears, your first and your index and your middle finger, and you curled like you
so
curled
he goes, don't
quotes.
forget, and he does that but he doesn't say anything. He just does that with his fingers. And Balky does it right back to him and he goes, bye-bye.
Balky thought this means bye-bye. It's so funny. I don't know why.
That cracked me up. Quotes. Always get exact quotes.
Oh, Larry should be careful what he tells Balky.
And Balky's like, oh, right. Quotes. So then Lydia comes in time to catch the elevator with Larry. And Larry's like, got papers and stuff in his hand. Lydia's like, oh, Wainwright's still running you around like a madman, right? And so then the elevator comes, and as they're going, Larry and Lydia are going into the elevator. Larry's like, this is the third time he's had me rewrite this murder story. He said I mentioned murder too much. And he says, as they're going into the elevator, he says, if you ask me, Mr. Wainwright is not playing with a full deck. And then the door to the elevator closes. They're inside. They leave, and Balky's left there, and he hears it, and he repeats, Mr. Wainwright is not playing with a full deck. And then he says, what a great, and then he does air quotes.
Bye-bye.
What a great quote. And we fade out to the end of Act 1.
Oh, boy. Larry has just caused a great deal of trouble as we end Act 1. Listener, join the conversation. Join our Facebook group. There's a link in the description. I post episode threads for all the episodes we're going to do beforehand. You can leave your thoughts, comments, questions, memories. We will share them at the end of the show. It's lots of fun. and a great place to just geek out about Perfect Strangers things. Post your SteelCon City photos if you went. I want to see them. And any other news.
That's right. Okay, so Act 2 starts at the Chronicle, and another few days have passed. And yeah, how often does this newsletter come out? Like once a month or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's taking a while.
I mean, you got to use rubber cement.
Yeah.
Type things.
Probably once a month or once every couple weeks. And Larry's, again, like working on all these assignments at his desk. And Balky comes in from the back, and he's got, how do you describe what he's wearing? This like over the shoulder.
Like a canvas, like poncho with pockets in it that you stuff newspapers in.
Yeah.
It's like the old-timey paper boys on the bikes. This is what they would wear to deliver the papers, but it's like this canvas bag.
It's like a poncho bib with bags.
And he's wearing
with
a
pockets.
hat made out of newspaper.
Oh, yeah. He
really
also
funny.
has a paper hat that he's made out of
Remember when he used to make those newspaper hats?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. From this outfit, we know that it's the day the newsletter is
the newsletter's
published.
out.
So he's like, extra, read all about it. Get your copy of the Chronicle Chatter under new management. And he gives one to Larry, and Larry says, thank you, but he doesn't look at it. He just sets it aside, and Balky stays there. He's like, it's hot off the presses. And Larry's like, I'll get to it later. And then he gets serious. He goes, read it before they wrap fish in it. And Larry says, I guess you want me to read this right now. And Balky's like, only if you have time.
So great.
So Larry sets down his work, and as a throwaway, he explains that he was hoping to read it before it went to press, but he had been so busy. And Balky says, it's okay. We both had papers to put out. And just then, Gorpley comes out of his office, reading, like he's got a copy of the newsletter, and he is laughing.
He is having a blast here.
He's enjoying this.
Yes. He goes, oh, Bartokamus. I got to admit it. This is the best thing I've seen in years. I'm like, what? And Balky's like, thank you, Mr. Gorpley. Larry says, did I tell you people would love it? And Balky's like, I'm overcome. He just says, I'm overcome with what? With emotion.
He says it with emotion.
He says it with emotion. And he tells Gorpley, he's like, I can't take all the credit. Cousin Larry helped too. And Gorpley's like, well, whoever wrote the story about Lydia did a great job.
And Balky says, well, you're looking right through him.
You're looking right through him.
The expression is looking at him.
But this is how Gorpley looks at people, right? He'll look right through him. So it's like really.
Yeah, it's really.
And then he goes, I mean, everybody thought she went to the Bahamas, Gorpley says. But you found out she really went to Milwaukee to have an island tuck. Nice going, Bartokamus. Oh, my God.
And now Larry is very concerned upon hearing this.
Oh, boy.
Says, what? Excuse me? And Gorpley says it's right next to the Dimitri sheep cartoon.
Oh, my God. There's a
cartoon.
Dimitri the sheep cartoon in this newsletter.
Yes. And in fact, Balky says that that's going to be a regular feature. I thought maybe later we could give it a political angle.
He becomes a political cartoonist. I want to read these Dimitri sheep cartoon. Did he draw it himself? I want to see what this looks like.
I don't know. He probably is a real.
Is it one panel? Is it several panels? Is it like the Far Side? Is it like Calvin and Hobbes?
Yeah.
Oh, I need a Dimitri Sheep Saturday morning comic.
Charlie Brown.
Cartoon.
Okay, so then Larry's like, what's going on? So he looks at the article and he reads out loud. If you're wondering who had what done where, the answer is Miss Lydia, the paper's favorite advice columnist, went to Milwaukee to get her eyelids tucked.
Oh, boy.
When? Over the weekend. So if you get a chance, compliment her on her new peeper covers.
Peeper covers.
So Balky has taken this 5W's advice quite literally
and literally,
wrote it all out exactly.
And now
literally.
he's just airing out everybody's dirty laundry.
And Larry is very scared and nervous and concerned. And he's like, how many of these have you given out? And Balky proudly says 1 to every employee in the building and a complimentary pile in the lobby. And Larry's like, okay, get your coat. We're getting out of here. And he's starting to like run out of the basement.
We have to get out of here.
Balky's like, what? He's like, come on. And Balky is confused. And before they get a chance to leave,
oh boy,
Lydia comes in wearing sunglasses.
She's in the elevator and she's got sunglasses on and she's Superman.
And she's looking very upset.
I was like, oh no. And she goes, I want some answers, and I want them now.
And she says, I have been humiliated, held up to ridicule in front of everyone in the building. And Balky hears this and he goes, who did this to you, Miss Lydia? They'll have to answer to me.
And Gorpley's over there going, chill out, Lydia. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought the article was
Peeper
hilarious.
covers.
Peeper covers. Just egging them on.
And then Lydia looks at Gorpley and is like, well, you're pretty cheerful for a man who doesn't have long to live.
Uh-oh.
And Gorpley's like, what? What are you talking about? And she goes, you didn't see the article about you and Maggie? And Gorpley's like, the what? And Larry says, oh, no, there's another one. And Lydia's like, right, it's on the last page. It's equally hilarious. And Balky's like, thank you very much. I do try to accent the lighter side. Balky's still thinking everyone's very impressed with this.
So oblivious this whole scene about what's actually happening.
And so Gorpley flips to the last page and he starts reading Sam Gorpley looking very handsome in a pickled herringbone suit.
Okay, so then he pauses there and looks up at Balky. But that's so funny. A pickled
herringbone is a fabric design.
Yeah, pickled herring.
And pickled herring
delicious, like
is
Norwegian snack.
Food. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, in a pickled herringbone suit, who was seen dining with who? Maggie Miner, wife of sports editor and bodybuilder Matt Miner. That's who. Apparently, Maggie has a sore knee because Mr. Gorpley was nice enough to rub it all during lunch.
Gorpley just goes, I'm a dead man. And but then he's like, but I'm taking somebody with me. And both of them start to advance on Balky.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were going to do here.
Yeah.
Were they just going to shove him in a mailbag and ship him to Alaska like Garfield would do to Odie?
Gorpley's married too, no? Or maybe, oh no, he was going through,
he was
got divorced. Yeah,
This is probably why he got divorced.
Yeah.
And then Larry is trying to help. He's shielding Balky and thinking quick on his feet.
He goes, oh, Balky, they fell for it. Let's let them in on the joke. And he tries to tell them that there were only 2 copies of the newsletter and the 2 of them got it.
Yeah, I love his nervous laughter, too.
Yeah, he's like, and Gorpley's like, nope, they're all over the building. And Lydia is very hurt. She says, I can't believe you would write something like this. And Balky, still oblivious, says, I can't believe it myself. I was afraid my writing would be flat and pedestrian, but I followed exactly what Cousin Larry told me to do, and you can see the results.
And now you see Larry's eyes pop wide open, and panicky Larry is full on as he's turning his head back and forth. He's like, but I didn't help that much. And Bucky's like, oh, come on, cousin, you're being modest. And he's like, no, listen. He's like, the truth must be told. And Larry's like, oh, I don't know.
And he keeps going. He says, you see, I was just going to write that Miss Lydia went to the Bahamas, but Cousin Larry kept saying, no, you got to dig a little deeper. You got to dig a little deeper. And Larry's like, no, I didn't say that. We couldn't blah, blah, blah. And then just as he's bumbling, Mr. Wainwright comes in.
Appleton.
And he runs over. At first, Larry is happy for the distraction. He's like, yes, sir, Mr. Wainwright.
He thinks he's out of a jam, right?
He's like, what can I do for you? Research filing out of town assignment? He's like trying to get far away from everyone. And Wainwright holds up the newsletter and points to a spot right in the middle. And he says, explain this article in the Chronicle Chatter. And Larry's like, oh no, there's another one. And he takes the newsletter and he reads out loud, if you're wondering what Mr. Wainwright might like in his Christmas stocking, might I suggest a pack of playing cards? And why would this be the ideal gift? Because according to Cousin Larry Appleton, Mr. Wainwright isn't playing with a full deck.
Oh, no.
And Larry he's nervous laughing. He's like, a full deck, isn't that a nautical term?
Like, that's pretty quick thinking. I get that. And he's like, is that a nautical term? And then Balky runs over, just doesn't make things better. He goes, Mr. Wainwright, one less thing to ask Santa for.
And Larry's like, it was a mistake. It wasn't me. I would never say anything like that about you. I must have been misquoted. And Balky is like, no, cousin, I was standing right there. You taught me. And he's doing the quotes, the air quotes. He said, I was right there and I got the exact quote as it flew out of your mouth. And Larry's like, it was taken out of context. And he tries to cover it up. He's like,
it was
He's like, have you lost weight? Because that's a very nice suit. It matches your head. The hair on your head. Because Wainwright is bald.
I love it because it's a nice suit. It matches your head. Your hair.
The hair on your head.
So funny.
And Wainwright stops him. He goes, Appleton, you're babbling. And he says, when you're coherent, call me. And he leaves. So Larry's in some deep Baba Sticky here, potentially.
Meanwhile, Balky's been working on his next story, and he pulls out his notepad and he writes down, Mr. Wainwright and Mr. Gorpley in Fashion War. Check it out. And then the elevator door opens where Gorpley and Lydia are standing, right? And there's this big hunky dude.
This big beefy
with
dude.
a tight shirt. He's got lots of muscles. And he goes, I'm Matt Miner. And I'm looking for Sam Gorpley. And Gorpley's kind of like shrinking against the wall. But then both Gorpley and Lydia turn to Larry, point at him, and go, that's him.
Oh,
and
boy.
Larry's like, and he runs off the back. And Matt Miner takes off chasing out the archives back door. Serves Larry right. He got everybody in this predicament.
And this beefy Matt Miner is played by an actor called Curtis Taylor, who used to have a recurring role in the primetime soap opera Knots Landing. Did you ever watch Knots Landing?
I remember Knots Landing being on, but that dude in the last episode, Mr. Barber, the insurance salesman, he was also in
Knots Landing.
Remember Aaron from the other other Perfect Strangers podcast?
Yeah.
They had a Murder, She Wrote thing going.
Oh, that's right.
We could start a Knots Landing. A lot of Knots Landings connections.
All right, so we go to the next scene, and it's the same day later in the evening, and we're at the apartment. And Larry is on the phone at the kitchen counter, and we hear him saying, yes, sir, Mr. Wainwright. Totally uncalled for. Yes. I really meant that about the weight loss, though. You're looking very, very, hello. He gets, Wainwright hangs up on him. And then he tells Balky, good news, I'm off. He said, well, actually, he calls out, but we don't see Balky in the scene. He goes, Balky, good news. I'm off the hook with Wainwright. He was very gracious. Well, that was an easy resolution.
I wonder,
how did he?
What did he say? Larry can talk his way out of that. It's impressive.
And then we see Balky come out of his bedroom. And how would you describe what he's wearing?
So he walks out of his bedroom and he has kind of like a headband on with some twigs sticking out of it, but he's wearing it's like a brown stiff poncho, but it's low on his shoulders.
Over his bare skin.
You can see he's not wearing a shirt underneath. There's a little flap in front and at the bottom that ends at his waist.
And it's made of like
like furry,
itchy things,
tails,
right?
And it looks very uncomfortable.
And he like walks in discomfort and pain slowly. He's wincing as he walks to the couch and slowly sits down. And Larry is just watching him and feeling uncomfortable as he watches him. And he says, "Balky, how long do you plan on wearing the Meposian mantle of 1,000 itches?"
This is the Meposian mantle
of 1,000 itches.
And Balky goes, well, Meposian law states I must wear it 1 year for every person I offend. And let me see, I offended 7 people. So I think we're looking at a 7-year itch. This is a good
pun. Itch.
Let me, before we get to that pun, Balky's face, he has one eye shut and one eye open. And he's making this hilarious.
This thing is like he's just suppressing. Yes. It's making him itchy.
His mouth is wide open in pain and every movement.
I know that look because I used to have a lot of problems with getting a zillion mosquito bites and being every time like clothes would rub into it, and I've often felt like I'm wearing one of these itch mantles.
Kind of like if you had the chicken pox and like how the shirt feels, like, and you're like,
it's terrible.
Anyways, I think we're looking at a 7-year itch is a play on a phrase.
Yeah, 7-year itch,
and a couple of things.
It refers to happiness in a marriage or any other kind of long-term relationship, which is a reference that says that like every seven years is like when you start,
or most marriages end in divorce
unfaithful,
in 7 years,
or start like your eyes start wandering around. 7 years, you're looking.
Yes,
and it was also the title of a play. The play might have actually made this phrase popular, the 7-year itch.
Okay.
The play by George Axelrod. And then there was a film adaptation in 1955, further making it popular. That film starred Marilyn Monroe.
The phrase had been around, but the play
had been around before the play and the movie
made it more vernacular. Like, oh, he's got the 7-year itch. Better look out, wandering eye over there, kind of thing.
And then, like much later, it started as a phrase about infidelity in a relationship, but much later, people started using it like for other, like in jobs. You get a 7-year itch every 7 years. You like get antsy and you want to get a new job or something else.
There's something about this number 7 because in podcasting, it was a thing where like most podcasts don't last past 7 episodes. Seven episodes, and then they just quit. I don't know what it is with 7.
Fun use of Miposian law and this phrase 7-year itch. Balky says he's going to have to wear it for 7 years. And Larry comes to the couch, sits next to him, and he says, I think you're carrying this a little too far. And Balky says, no, if I was carrying this too far, I'd be wearing the boxer shorts of eternal chafing.
Oh, that sounds equally uncomfortable.
That would be in addition to the mantle of 1,000 itches. And Larry explains that in America, when you offend someone, a verbal apology is sufficient. And then he says, unless you offend a large segment of the population, then you get a presidential pardon.
Okay, this is clearly some sort of topical reference here.
Right. We had to think about this for a minute.
It's October 1989. George Bush is president.
Somebody has offended a large segment of the population and
got off and got pardoned. Cleared of all things. Who could this be?
The best we could figure out was that this is a reference to Oliver North.
That's what I think. The Iran-Contra and under Reagan and there
were a lot of lies and deceptions told to the American people.
Yes, and Oliver North might have lied, right?
Oliver North did admit to lying and everything, and he was charged and convicted initially on 3 felony charges, but they were all dismissed in 1991, so not quite in 1989, but maybe.
So he got the pardon before, but then this was under Reagan.
Pardon was in 89. Well, it wasn't an official pardon like where presidents do it at the end of their terms, but it was, I think Bush did it, right?
Yeah, George Bush must have did a senior.
Yeah.
Anyways, a little political humor.
Political history. Look
strangers.
We don't know for a fact that they're referring to Oliver North. That's our best guess here. Okay.
Also, Meepos has a lot of cruel and unusual kind of punishments there.
Yeah.
Chafing and itching. That's just.
But the point Larry is trying to make is that a verbal apology would be enough. And Balky says, you mean if I write everyone I offended a verbal apology, I'd be okay? And Larry just goes, in a manner of speaking. And so Balky's like, all right, I'm going to do that. And then they take off. Larry helps him take off the mantle, the thing he's wearing.
Oh, and now Bronson Pinchot is topless.
Bronson Pinchot with some muscles and some chest hair. I bet the audience went wild.
I wonder if they cut that out because I didn't hear anybody hooting and catcalling. Yeah, I don't remember. I thought I would hear like a bunch of women
maybe
going,
they cut it out. But he's briefly, and he's wearing shorts too.
Shorts, but then he reaches forward and he grabs a vest. And we've seen this vest before. He wore it earlier.
Before the vest, he leans back bare with his bare top. And as soon as he hits the back of the couch, he like grimaces again from the itch. He's like, and then he gets one of his vests. And it's one that we've seen before. It's red with
looks like camping tents on there. Yes.
I think we had a name for that.
There is an official name for it on the spreadsheet with Balky Duds.
Balky Duds has a name for this.
In a while.
We should pull up the spreadsheet. And then he he puts on this vest, he starts fastening it, and he feels a lot more comfortable. And then he looks at Larry, he goes, wool. As in wool is more comfortable than this
the mantle
itch
of itching. Yes.
And then he says, he's going to apologize to everyone, and then he's going to resign from the newsletter. And then we hear our familiar lesson time music. And Larry says, you don't have to resign. You did a good job. Larry says, the first newsletter you wrote was pretty good. All it needed was a little fine tuning, and I'm sure you'll do a terrific job if I stay out of your way.
Belky goes, Costin, you would do that for me? Oh. And Larry's like, you bet I would.
And so that's really it. There's no,
that's
there's
the
no
lesson.
lesson. The lesson is don't resign. It's fine. Just
No, the lesson is Larry's learned to just stay out of his business.
Larry's learned to stay out of his way.
Stick your nose into other people's things.
And then as a parting joke or gag, Larry says, I just have one question. How did you find out about Gorpley's lunch date with Maggie Minor? And Belky says he followed his suggestion and went undercover. And then he stands up and he puts on this like heavy, like surfer dude California accent. And he does this little act out. He's like, hi, my name's Bart. I'll be your waiter today. Let me just put your drink order in real quick, and then I'll be back to explain our specials and get you started on our salad bar. But he did. I can't do that California accent.
Hi, I'm Bart. That's great. It sounds like Keanu Reeves or something.
Yeah, he sounds like Keanu Reeves.
He's just doing Keanu.
And he like runs toward the kitchen, and we just see Larry looking a little befuddled and impressed, and roll credits.
Listener, check out our TeePublic shop. Get some great podcast swag at danceofjoy.com/shop, where there is t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, coffee mugs, travel mugs, cell phone cases, all with a Dance of Joy logo on there. Be the envy of all your friends and your other 80s sitcom fans, friends, shows. I don't know. Be the envy of all the other 80s TV podcasts that are out there.
Do it. Be it.
There's
be the envy now.
Be it. Be the envy now. Do it now. So this episode was it was fun. It was funny. What did I think the wordplay with the who, what, where, when, why, like that was probably the
Very
highlight
fun.
of the episode. Not a lot of physical comedy.
No. We have a dance of joy. Yeah, it was just kind of an okay episode. Also, I stand behind my question that I said at the top is like Larry taught an entire intro to journalism class at Balky's college. Wouldn't he have learned this stuff?
I believe that class was 3 weeks exclusively on use of the semicolon. That's, it was a very focused curriculum.
They never got past the semicolon.
He could not get past the semicolon. Maybe Larry isn't the best teacher. With the advice we see him give here, he probably wasn't great. But yes, let's forget that Balky did take a journalism class and should have known the who, what, where, when, why.
Yeah.
But shouldn't Larry, what are they going to learn? What is he going to learn? Be careful what you say to Balky, because he will take it quite literally. I love the little bombshells of information coming out and the reactions.
Yeah.
Like that was funny. And the best is when he says that line about Wainwright and goes in the elevator. You hear the audience react, going, "Oh snap!"
Quotes.
You shouldn't have said that. Bye-bye. Like that's still
Larry
very funny.
just is dumb in this episode.
But Balky is also like back to being oblivious, fresh off the boater a little bit.
So this is kind of as I watched through all of Perfect Strangers a while ago in the pandemic. This is about the time where I started to have this thought, where like, okay, in the later seasons, we're now in season 5. Presumably Balky has been in America in all these different situations for like what, 3-4 years, maybe more. And they really take their liberties. Like in some episodes, he's very aware. He's like emotionally intelligent. He's very like, he's picking up on American social cues. He's very American. He's assimilated and he gets it. And sophisticated references, all this stuff. And then in other episodes, he's back to being this like bumbling foreigner who doesn't know anything. And I started to think it becomes more and more prevalent as we'll go through this season and the next season, where the writers are really like taking that liberty. And I don't know if that would fly so much today, but
I mean, look, back then you had to write 22 episodes and get them shot really quickly. Remember that when the show started, like they had just filmed it and it was up a few weeks later. It was a mid-season replacement.
But it's like, is there any character development for Balky's character?
No, but that's
like how many seasons?
That's the gag. Yeah. It is, but it's a product of its time. Where you just
in any new country, whether it's people coming to America or people going other countries, after 3 or 4 years, you wouldn't be that. Maybe with the language, if the language is hard, but like
but there's no jokes there. It's
Yeah.
funnier when they don't know things for
Right,
5
right.
years, I guess,
Right.
is the thing. Yeah, it's, it's situational comedy. It's conveniently there when it needs to be there. At least we didn't have another lie episode with Larry.
Yeah.
We just had him giving bad advice and not thinking about what he's saying.
No, the advice was good.
It was just
the advice was good. Then he ran his mouth off
Yes.
within earshot of Balky
Yeah, it's
about
great.
Wainwright.
Yeah. Quotes. So, yeah, like it was funny. It's
Just an okay episode for me.
Mid-level episode, but still had some good guffaws, some good laughs.
Yeah. Oh, they're always funny. Don't be ridiculous was said one time.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
And of course, we have not only a Dimitri appearance, but a Dimitri involvement
one of
in
my
the
favorite
episode.
Dimitri appearances in a while.
He literally acts as the stamp of approval
Even though
for
he's getting violently slammed on
violent stamp of
the
approval
desk.
for Balky's newsletter. Okay, now it's time for the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today, or PS Today, in which we discuss, could this episode exist today or be remade today? Could this story be told today? What things would hold up? What things would have to change? What are your thoughts,
First of
Imran?
all, there's barely any newspapers around, but aside from that,
Yeah.
a company would have like
Does your company have a newsletter?
So during the pandemic, we sent out an email bulletin. We called it like a
But it
pandemic
was like
bulletin.
about people in the company
what everyone was up to.
in
but
their
they-
personal lives
Sometimes.
or in their work
But
lives.
you
Okay.
like you would provide like what are you working on? But then you'd also be like, oh, I checked out these TV shows. There's some
Yeah.
recommendations. Some personal stuff, but everybody submitted it themselves. I mean,
Okay.
during the pandemic, it was nice because we didn't see anybody.
Right.
But I could see how a company could have an internal email. It would be an email newsletter. You're not printing this. But there's always like Xerox bulletin things. Maybe like in hospitals, they have a little internal thing. But a similar thing with email, like newspapers, once you send out an email, you can't get it back.
Unless it's through like Constant Contact or something.
No, but unless you link it to a web page.
You can link
but
it.
the content you create in the email creator, once that leaves, it's gone. You can't pull it back. So
you can't edit it in the email creator.
because
and
the
have
email has been delivered. The people have already opened a copy of this thing. So you could have a similar situation where he puts this thing in,
change it.
and maybe they run around, they try to delete everyone's inbox before they get to read the thing, or they like hack the server.
Oh, yeah, that would be funny.
Or something. You can't change it. It's already sent. You just got to hope they don't open the email before you can get to it. Or they just walk around with magnets just deleting everyone's hard drive.
Yeah.
While one distracts.
Or maybe they send another email out saying that's spam, don't open it.
Oh, they could do
It's a
that.
virus.
Because that's what you have to do in business. You got some brands where they'll send out an email and they'll be like, oh, correction, sorry.
Right.
This was
Don't
the real
open it.
thing. You know, we had an error. That's the only way you can fix an email.
Yeah. And also now it would be hard to keep those kinds of things. It's not impossible, but to keep like Lydia keeping her eyelid surgery, which first of all, I'm not even sure what an eyelid tuck is. Eyelid.
It's like a facelift kind of thing.
Okay,
Pull
it's
it back,
weird.
tighten it up,
Maybe it
pull
was
back.
something that was more common in the 80s, or like
Yeah.
why she would be ashamed of it or trying to keep it a secret. But it's hard to do that stuff because everyone's on Instagram and stuff like that. Like people, like if your coworkers are following your social media, if you are active in social media, they're gonna know like what you were actually doing.
Somebody could have been in Milwaukee and been like, "Hey, check out Lydia in Milwaukee," and snap a picture from across the street, and he finds that, and that's the thread he uses to follow.
Or like Gorpley, same thing with Gorpley on a day with
There would
Maggie
definitely be. This is a whole different thing. But if they ever did it, like if they did this today, there'd have to be a catfishing episode, like a hilarious
for
catfish
sure.
episode.
Balky would get catfished, or
I think it'd be funny if Larry got catfished.
Larry got catfished,
and somehow Balky, I don't know, you could spin it.
Yeah.
And Larry just couldn't see it, and Balky's picking up on the clues.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, cousin, this is like on Meepos when you get sheep hosed.
Yeah.
Or something. Like, you got a horse and a sheep.
I was just going to say that.
Something
What's
silly.
the Meeposian version of
catfish?
catfishing?
Sheep throat. I don't know.
And then in Meeposian, you find out that the person is actually a sheep corresponding with you, not
it's not a real person. You're in love with a sheep. I've been sheep hosed. That's what it would be. That's what happens when people instead of characters.
She posed.
She posed.
So the verdict is yes, a version of this could be made today, but some things would be modernized.
You could have a lot of fun with this whole
newsletters.
concept.
Yeah.
But he would still tell him the 5 W's journal. That's the same. That's the same.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't add any W's in the last 29 years.
No, you can't add. No.
You can't add W's. It's not like the amendment of the
But he would be
Constitution.
like, also, you got to check Twitter and check, like, these are valid
Check your sources
now. Yeah.
Well, Well, that's a whole other discussion.
Twitter
So
reporting.
the
Yeah.
sources. Nobody cares about sources,
Right.
which is a problem. So, yes, some version of this could still hold up, and maybe sheep hosing would be funnier.
And then that line about
Presidential pardon?
unless you offend a large segment of the population,
Yeah.
then you get. We could easily rewrite that and say, unless you offend a large segment of the population, then you become
Then
president.
you could get elected president.
Yeah.
Oh, see, now we're getting political.
Now we are. Okay.
All right, that's it for this week. Join us next week when the cousins will be taking care of their dental hygiene. It's important to floss after every meal, right, sister?
Yes. The next week is also one of these iconic Perfect Strangers episodes. And yes, floss.
I don't remember this being iconic. Them going to the dentist already sounds hilarious.
Yes. No, it's going to be a good episode. Yes, it is important to floss.
It's as important as brushing.
Yeah, more important,
Oh,
I
see?
think. I'm not a dentist, but I am addicted to flossing. Listen, I can get by without brushing my teeth in whatever situation, but if I can't feel the wind pass between my teeth, I cannot sleep at night.
Wind
feel
beneath
the air,
my wings.
the wind between my teeth.
What do we go? You go waxed, unwaxed? What are you doing over there?
I do a mint wax, just generic brand
mint
from
wax. Yes,
CVS.
mint wax. There you go.
And I go generic because I use a lot of it. I have floss in every room, in every purse, in the car.
Listen,
etc.
she's like a floss ninja. Like
I'm
if
a
there's ever an
flossing
intruder,
maniac.
you're just gonna throw that box out, hit him on the head. It
I
comes
have
back.
to feel the air between my teeth,
like
or else I'm not okay.
It's like a floss yo-yo. Just goes and comes back.
Floss. There's floss everywhere. Anyway.
Listener, if you enjoy the show and we brought back some nostalgia and some memories, you can, of course, support the show monetarily. You could throw some money in our tip jar. You could buy us a virtual coffee. If you visit our website, there's a little buy us a coffee button
Just a
there.
few dig dust.
It's a few dig does. We appreciate any and all donations, and it helps us keeping the air between our teeth. I mean, the wind beneath our wings.
It helps keep us
Virtually caffeinated.
Keep us supplied with floss. You could also just stop by and say hello. Stop by at danceofjoypod.com. There's a button right there on the website where you can leave us a voice message, or you can write us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Check in, say hi, tell us what you like. Tell us about your office newsletter and all the juicy things you've learned from that. And also on the website, you'll find all the places where you can listen to the podcast, where you can subscribe, leave us a rating, a review, and also links to all our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, IG. Give us a like, give us a follow, say hi. We'd love to hear from you. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Oh, when you're eating, make sure you chew your food at least 35 times. It helps digestion. It slows you down. You eat less. You feel fuller. And then make sure you floss afterwards.
Yes.
And always follow the 5 W's of journalism.
And always get quotes.
Always get bye-bye.
Bye-bye, direct quotes.
And always share the show with your, all the newsletters you subscribe to, with your editor, with your copy-paste guy, with your rubber cement salesman.
Yes, right. Have a whole little section about it in your newsletter,
Send
in your
out
office
a newsletter about this episode, about a newsletter.
We are on a mission to share the joy we feel from Perfect Strangers with the world, and you can help us by sharing our show with a friend. We would highly appreciate it. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.